I want to do a video today all about camber and tires and getting the front end to steer good. And I think if people understand camber to the core and how it actually affects the car, it'll get you thinking about other ideas and stuff to do to your front end and why camber is so important. So let's roll the intro and let's talk about some camber today. I've spent the last 30 plus years working on race cars, building race cars, and racing cars. And I'm here to help you better understand racing technology. I guess the first thing I want to talk about with camber is how it works on a tire and how it can help you steer into the turn. This is the way it was explained to me once, and I always go back to it because it's I don't know if everything is right on this, but it gives you kind of an overview and puts your mind into the right place to understand how camber actually works. Think of it as you sitting with a trampoline, and the trampoline is stood up, and you push on the center of the trampoline, okay? And the push that's on the center of the trampoline would represent your front suspension on your car, your spindle and everything else. The bottom and the edges of the trampoline would be the tire, the sidewall, and everything that's going on there. So when you push on that center of the trampoline, there's going to be a reaction force pushing back. Now, if it's in a camber setting, think of it as your spindle going through there, and you're pushing on your spindle, and that tire flex is wanting to shove you back. And that's how a tire kind of helps steer. And then when you get slip angle into it, slip angle is the part of a tire, like when you turn a tire, there'll be a portion like rolling on the ground where the tire patch will go in. In the tire patch, the tire will get twisted a little bit. And as the tire leaves out of the back of the tire patch, it's going to want to snap back. That snapping back or that twist in the tire gives you a turning motion in your car. So slip angle is actually figured by the car or the tire. The bigger the sidewalls of the tires, the more flexible they are, the more slip angle they'll have, and the more turning ability and traction it'll have in turning. The problem with too much slip angle is it gets the car lazy, and it'll provide more grip the bigger the sidewall and the more slip angle, but the car gets lazier. You got to turn your spindle more in order to get more of a reaction. Think of it as a road tire. With your tires in the front end on these little low profile tires you got now, there is a better reaction time if there's grip in the road. But once that grip in the road comes out, like with water or snow, you need more of a sidewall of the tire to get it to twist. That's why those small little low profile tires won't get as much grip on like icy or snowy conditions is those old, big, old-fashioned tires with a ton of sidewall. Hey, maybe they even got a white wall on them, if anybody is old enough to remember white walls. But those bigger sidewall tires will have more slip angle into it, so when you turn your tire, the tire stretches more, maintains more grip, and will help you turn a lot better. The next thing I want to talk about before we really get into the effects of camber on it is an old thing, and it's called a traction circle. Now, nobody really talks about this no more, but if you get into your 60s and 70s, this was a big deal to understand tires, and I use it to communicate with guys who think that they can have a magic tire that does everything. A tire wants to stretch to maintain grip. It's either going to stretch going forward or it's going to stretch going sideways. There's a 100% limit on how much that tire will stretch. If you use all of your tire to turn sideways and you want a ton of turning, the tire won't have any stretch left over to get up and traction off the corner. Especially, you see this in the rear where you want like a ton of stretching on the right rear, you want a ton of side bite, but then you want a ton of traction off the road. Well, the right rear, the tire's only going to give you so much. You're either going to use it for side bite or you're going to use it for forward bite. You can't have it all at once. So there's a trade-off there, and it's called the traction circle. I have a diagram later we'll show you and talk about traction circle, and it might get clearer. But think about your tire, and when you're managing tires, the biggest thing you gotta manage is understand that a tire can't do everything all the time 100%. You know, you're either gonna compromise a little bit on the steering on the right rear and go for more traction, or you're gonna, use your slip angle more in the front and get it to turn more, but there is a limit on tires, so I just kind of wanted to bring that up, and like I said, we'll go through more of that later. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about camber. Now, if you have your right front and it is totally stood up, and we think about our trampoline again, and we're pushing on the center of that trampoline, the inside of your right front tire, when you push on it and that tire is totally stood up, you're going to get a bulge on the inside, and the outside is going to actually round under because you're putting your force on the center of the spindle and your tire wants to conform like this. So the inside of your tire is going to have a bulge. Now think about the force downward, gravity or whatever have you on there. So when you're pushing down on that tire and that tire is big on the inside, like if it's totally stood up all the way vertical, that inside portion of the tire is not going to have the traction on it. There's not going to be, you're not using your full tire for traction. Even when you're in a corner, everybody says, well, you get camber so the tire stands up. You're not going to get the same amount of traction. So what we do is we twist the tire towards the inside. So when you push on that tire, that bulge on the inside gets smaller and smaller, and the force downward pushing on that will actually equalize more readily across the tire. You don't want a tire, at least on dirt, that is totally stood up and you think about it statically. Oh, that whole tire's contact patch is on the ground, and it's not. Because of that push in the middle of your spindle and that bulge on the inside of your tire, your contact patch actually narrows up and you're not getting as much traction out of the tire as you need to. So what we do is we put camber in a tire. If this is kind of, I'm looking at the camera here, but this is kind of the right front. Our spindle's going through there. There's less bulge down here. So the more camber we put in that tire, the less that bulges, the more tire is on the track. Plus, with the force going down on the tire, that smaller bulge equalizes the force and the traction of the tire. And then as you go to steer into the corner and that force, the camber force will actually react and start turning you left. So the more force you put in there and the more camber you put in there and the more you equalize the tire and get that stretch to it, the more the natural camber is going to want to start to turn that car into the corner on a left-hand turn. Now, if you do road racing, you camber a lot less because you're not always turning left. But in our circle track stuff, we always turn left to some degree or counter steered and turning left. And so there's a difference, a big difference in camber between circle and like road racing. So let's go over to the drawing board. I got some drawings that's probably gonna help this make a little more sense. You put a visual in your mind about it. So let's head over to the drawing board and give them a look. Okay, the first thing I think I'll start with is the idea of the traction circle. I don't want to get real complicated on this, but I think it's really important to kind of know what the traction circle is and how it works. So you think about this as acceleration and braking and then left and right turn. Well, the maximum traction is on the center or on the outside of the circle here. This circle is where your tire, the edge of this circle is where your tire will see 100% traction. That's built into the tire. There's nothing we can do about it. But now, what we want to do is at all times keep your tire at 100%. Anytime you're outside the circle, you're actually you're trying to get more from a tire than what the tire wants to give you. Anytime you're inside the circle, you're not getting as much out of the tire. Now this is theoretical. There's nothing you can really do to measure it. I'm sure there are people at high levels in tire companies who might measure some of this, but this is just kind of an overall concept on how this stuff works. So you always want to try to keep your tires at its maximum. If you want to turn 100% left, or like side bite, you won't have anything left to go for acceleration like on your right rear. So if you have a right rear tire and you want side bite and acceleration, you want to run your tires somewhere through here because it's not going to give you 100% traction here or here. You got to kind of manage that, and there's a difference there. I see a lot of guys that go in there and they want a ton of side bite. Well, then understand that you have to lift out of the gas and let your tire relax, and then you can accelerate. You can't expect a tire to go in there with 100% side bite or better than 100%, but then you get on the gas and all of a sudden that you're expecting that tire to come off the corner. There's got to be a little bit of a give and take here, whether you want side bite or forward traction. Now on the front end, it's a little simpler because we're not trying to stretch that tire to get acceleration. But with the front, you want to keep that tire loaded at 100% somewhere through here, to get the car to turn well. And like I said, this is theoretical. It's, don't spend a ton of time on it. I just wanted to get it understood. The next thing I want to bring up now is slip angle. Now think about your tire turning left, and when your tire is rolling and it hits the track on the contact patch in here, it's going to want to twist that contact patch. And then when the tire rolls out of that and it's rolling around, the tire actually wants to snap back and turn you left. That's how slip angle works. And the bigger the sidewall and the more traction you're going to get out of it, the more you're going to have to turn that tire in order to turn left. Smaller profile tires, where the tire's attached to the road more, you won't have this amount of slip angle. If on, like, say, a big sidewall dirt tire, you have like 10 degrees of slip angle, and you got to turn that tire 10 degrees to get that front end to start gripping and turning. Well, on a smaller sidewall tire, maybe even a mod tire where the sidewall's a little stiffer, you're not going to turn 10 degrees to get that tire to turn. You're only going to be able to turn 8 degrees before you break traction. So the more sidewall, late models will actually have a larger steering angle in the front to get that car to turn. Mods will have less of a steering angle to get the same effect because of the sidewall is smaller. This is just theoretical too, but it's good to understand to get your mind in that right place. The next is my camber deal. Now this is real simple. I think I explained it pretty much, but pretend like this is a trampoline and you got the force of your spindle going this way. You got the force of the car trying to go into the corner. Well, you're turning left and it's putting a load on the bottom of the tire here. And then what you have is a reaction force that's going to shove that car to the left. So think about camber and think about the stretch in the tire and how that helps turn your car to the left. It's the force here and the reaction force of the stretch of the rubber that gets your car to turn. Now this demonstrates a car with the least amount of camber. When you go in the corner and you don't have camber and that tire is stood straight up in the air, which a lot of people think, the inside of the tire will have a big bulge to it. And this will be like flab. There will be no traction here. There's no downforce because it's outside of your downforce parameter. And this is rolled under here, so you're trying to skid that thing. Your spindle is pushing back on it, but you're not getting a full amount of traction here because this is just like flabby, no load, kind of no traction. But now when we start putting camber in the tire, it's actually going to make this bulge smaller when you get the same load in here, and the top of the tire will actually start loading the inside, and you're going to get a lot more traction and a lot more steering because there's a lot less flab here and there's a lot more traction. The smaller the inside and the more camber you put into it, the more traction you're going to have across the contact patch because it's going to want to equalize the pressure more. Now there is a too much limit where you're putting too much camber in and this side gets actually way too hot and the tire isn't loaded right. So there's, unless we use a lot of sophisticated tire equipment, everybody, they take temperatures across the tire, but I don't think that's accurate because as soon as you slow down to come in the track, unless that tire is extremely screwed up, the tire temperatures, as soon as you slow down and stop loading, the temperatures start to neutralize across the tires. So unless your car is really, really screwed up, tire temps really aren't going to tell you what is really going on. I prefer to look more at tire wear, and you got to run a tire a little bit more to find out if your camber's good by tire wear. But I like tire wear much more than I do tire temperatures. Tire temperatures, I don't think, give you a big enough picture. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. YouTube gives me lots of love the more people who subscribe and hit the like button. And all the subscription is when I get a new video up and you go on to YouTube to look at videos, it'll say, hey, I got a video up, so it's nothing intrusive. We're not going to send you email or nothing. It's just hit the subscribe and hit the like button. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.